Hi everyone, welcome to Cloud Computing Lecture. I'm Professor Sahebgouda Patil, Department of Computer Science and Engineering, BLDEACET, Vijaypura. So in this lecture, I'll be talking about the following contents, that is cloud for science and engineering, then high performance computing on a cloud, then we have legacy applications on a cloud, then social computing, digital content, and cloud computing. So these four concepts I'm going to cover in the today's class. Okay, so cloud for science and engineering, high performance computing on a cloud, legacy application on a cloud, and social computing. We'll talk about what is digital content, and cloud computing. Okay, so these are the following contents that I'm going to cover in the today's lecture. Fine. So cloud, that is for science and engineering. Okay, so cloud, that is for science and engineering. So what do you mean by this? In the last few decades, we have witnessed the explosion of computational science based on the simulation of complex phenomena. So we have some phenomena and we have some generic problems as well. So we'll see some of the generic problems in virtually all areas of science. So what are those generic problems which comes in all areas of science? So those are the problems which we come across are collection of experimental data. So first we need to gather the data. This is one of the problems. Then management of very large volume of data. So if the data is very huge, okay, so how we can store, how we can transfer from one data center to another data center. So that is also one of the issue. So next we have building and execution of the models. So the models that we use for building an application. So those models, how we can build and how we can execute. So next we'll have integration of data and literature. So of course we need to integrate the data. So in integrating data that we can able to develop the models, and literature survey we have to do. So based on our application, okay, what kind of data is required? So we have to do the literature survey. Then documentation of the experiment. So after like performing the experiment, so we have to have the documentation. That is what is the input we have used to get this particular output. So all the document we need to maintain. So next, sharing the data with others. So this is important concern with respect to the cloud computing. So we need to share like what kind of data we need to share, and we need to provide the security and authenticity to the data, and data preservation for long period of time. Okay, so some of the data we need to store for the long period of time. So for these are the what some of the generic problem in virtually all areas of science. So for this, we use the cloud for in the platform like science as well as in engineering. So these all these activities require powerful computing system. So we have gone through these are the problem. So these all activities they require powerful computing system. So powerful computing system can perform or can provide the solution to all the generic problem just we have gone through. A typical example we can discuss in the later slide. So before we move to that example, so all these activities require big storage. Of course, we require big storage because huge amount of data we need to store, and systems capable to deliver abundant computing cycle. As I told you, a power computing system that is required to execute all these generic problems. The computing clouds are able to provide such resources and supports collaborative environment. So cloud computing, which provide a collaborative environment. Collaborative is nothing but like the task will be distributed to many. Okay, so that is nothing but a collaboration. So next, as I was talking about like online data, the online data discovery, along with that, the large scientific data sets. So these are the examples with respect to the science and engineering. So this we can see later. First, we'll see what is online data discovery. So here, the process of online data discovery can be viewed as an assemble of several phases. So we have the several phases. Like the first phase is recognition of the information problem. First, we need to recognize the problem. Okay, this is the first phase. In the second phase, generation of search queries using one or more search engines. So you know what do you mean by search engine. So you might have used the search engine for searching the data. We can get exactly data which we require using this search engine. Then the third phase is evaluation of the search results. After searching, we'll get the results and we need to evaluate those results. After this phase, we have evaluation of the web documents. We need to perform evaluation of search results as well as the documents which we get from the web. So those we need to evaluate. And the last phase in this is comparing information from different sources. So there will be different sources will be there. So from different sources we'll get the information. We need to compare the data. If it is like redundant data, we cannot able to take the redundant data. So only we take the data which we require at once. So this all are what some of the phases of data discovery in large scientific data sets. As I was talking about some generic example for the large scientific data sets. So in real time, we use biomedical and genomic data, biomedical and genomic data from the National Center for Biotechnology Information, that is NCBI. What do you mean by NCBI? NCBI stands for National Center for Biotechnology Information. So this is a large scientific data set example. Then the another example, that is astrophysics data from the NASA. Okay, so astrophysics data, it is a huge amount of data. The size of the images will be big. Okay, so all those images are all those data we have like stored in a large scientific data set. So we can have the example, that is astrophysics data from the NASA. Then we have atmospheric data. So we have the atmospheric data from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, that is called as the NOAA. NOAA stands for National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. And other one, National Center for Atmospheric Research, that is NCAR. So these all are what example for the large scientific data sets. So we have gone through the what is online data discovery, the phases of data discovery in large scientific data set, and few examples for the large scientific data set. So hope you have understood this. Move on to next. So we have the high performance computing on a cloud. So of course we require high computing, as I told you, to perform the data and to store the data on the database. So here we have the comparative benchmark of EC2, that is Elastic Cloud Computing, and 3 supercomputers at the National Energy Research Scientific Computing Center, that is called as the NERSC, and Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory. So NERSC has some 3,000 researchers, then it involves 400 projects and based on some 600 codes. So we'll see like what you mean by codes. So codes, like we have some of the codes, some of the what we can say codes that is used are, I'll just list out few. The first code that is we write it, first code that is CAM. So what do you mean by CAM? It is a community atmosphere mode. Community atmosphere mode. So this is the code. There are many 600 codes are there. I am discussing few. The first one is community atmosphere mode, and second one is GAMESS. GAME. So GAME means it's a general atomic and molecular electronic structure system. What is GAME assessment? General atomic and molecular electronic structure system. This is also one of the code we have. And third code that is we have, that is IMPACT. IMPACT. What do you mean by this? Integrated map and particle accelerated tracking time. Integrated map and particle accelerated tracking time. This is AC stands for accelerated tracking, and this is nothing, T is nothing but a time. Okay, so these are some of the codes. We'll discuss few more with respect to the code. The another one is MIMD. This somewhere here. Okay, MIMD. MIMD stand for, it's a MIMD lattice computation. MIMD lattice computation. It's generally we call it as a MILC. MILC stands for MIMD, and is nothing but a MIMD lattice computation. So this is also one of the code we have. So there are many codes that involved in this particular high performance computing computing on a cloud. So next we'll have, so here you can just look at the table. So just just look at the table here. We have the system, we have the DGEMM G flop and stream. This is a GB gigabyte per second, and latency, and this is a bandwidth, and HPLT flop, FETE G flop. Okay, so and this is a PTRANS GB gigabyte per second. So what is all this? So here this gives the some idea about the characteristic of scientific applications. So this gives the idea about what characteristic of some scientific applications likely to run effectively on the cloud. So these applications, how effectively run on the cloud, can give this particular table. So here, communication intensive applications will be affected by the increased latency. So we have the latency here. Okay, we have the latency here. So remember, the communication intensive applications will be affected by the increased latency that is more than 70 times larger than the carver. So we have taken some of the system, that is carver, Frank, Lauren, EC2. You have this elastic cloud computing, and these three are the new. These all are also some of the systems, and lower bandwidth. So bandwidth is lower. Here we have the bandwidth, lower bandwidth, more than 70 times smaller than the carver. So here we have a comparison where the results of the measurements that is reported. So these are some of the like the results we have got from the high performance computing on a cloud. So what we get from this high performance computing on a cloud, the conclusion here is that the communication intensive applications are affected by the increased latency and lower bandwidth of the cloud. So the low latency and high bandwidth of the interconnection network of a supercomputer cannot be matched by a cloud. So we must have increased latency and lower bandwidth. So this is with respect to high performance of cloud computing on a cloud. So next we have the legacy application on a cloud. So we can call it as a cloud computing for biology research. So legacy application means the cloud, we use it for biology applications, or we can call it the biology research. So first the question we should ask, it is feasible to run legacy application on a cloud or not? Okay, so some of the legacy application we are going to discuss, that is Cirrus. So there is a pictorial representation in this that we can see how actually the Cirrus set works. It's a general platform for executing the legacy Windows applications on the cloud. So this, what is this? It executes what? It executes Windows applications on the cloud. Cirrus job, it's a prologue of, or you can say commands and the parameters. The prologue sets up the running environment, and the commands are sequence of shell script, including Azure storage. So we'll see Azure storage in detail in further slide. That is, Azure storage means it is related to the command to transfer data between Azure blob storage and the instance. So instance are nothing but a worker. Okay. So instance is nothing but a worker. W1, W2, there are many workers are will be there. So next we have the BLAST, Azure BLAST. It's a biology code which finds a reason of local similarity between the sequences. It compares nucleotide or protein sequences to sequence databases and calculates the statistical significance of matches. So this is used to infer functional and evolutionary relationship between sequence and identify the member of gene families. So this is a use of Azure BLAST. So Azure BLAST, it is a version of BLAST running on the Azure platform. So we can see in detail about the Cirrus. That is, this is a pictorial representation of the Cirrus. Just look at the diagram here. We have the Azure table here and Azure block. Okay, so these are nothing but, as I told you, instances. So these all are instances. Okay, fine. So here we have after the Windows Live ID service authenticates the user, it can submit and track a job through the portal provided by the web role. So just look at here, the job is added to a table called a job registry. So we have the job registry here. This is the job registrations. We have the two role here. One is web role, another one is job manager role. So first we need to add the job to the job registry. Okay. So after that, the execution of each job is controlled by a job manager. So here we have the job manager. So the execution of each job is controlled by this job manager. That first scales the size of the worker based on the job configuration. So we have the worker instances. So these worker instances, that is based on the job configuration. Then the parametric engine starts exploring the parameter space. If this is test run, the parameter sweeping result is sent to the sampling filter. So we have the scaling engine, then parametric engine. After this, if this test is run, this parameter sweeping result is sent to the sampling filter. Okay, so this is how the flow that is going to take place. So next we have each task. Each task is associated with the record in the task table. So we have number of tasks here that is associated with the task table, and this state record is updated periodically by the worker since instance running on the task. The progress of task is monitored by the manager. So we have the job manager here. So the task performance that is monitored, or progress of the task that is monitored by the this job manager. So next we'll have another important thing, that is a role in Azure. That is, I was talking about the Azure. So we have the Azure table here and Azure block. A role in Azure is an encapsulation of an application, as noted earlier. There are two kinds of role, as I told you, web role. Another one is job manager role. A web role, that is for the web application. Okay, so this web role, this is for what? This is for web applications. This is for web applications. Then we have the another role, web application and front end code as well. The worker role. Okay, so we have the worker role here. So worker role, this is worker role. This all are comes under the worker role. So this is for background processing. So this is used for the background processing. Background processing. And next, okay, this is all about the Cirrus. It's an application, so where we use in the cloud. Hope you have understood this. And we have the sampling filter. We have the dispatch queue here. So through this dispatch queue, we'll transfer that data job to the worker instances. So next we have the execution of loosely coupled workload using the Azure platform. So just look at the diagram here. So in this diagram, we have the client here. So we have the client, and after that we have the portal. So that is worker role. Okay. So each worker role have the task, number of tasks, and portal will be having the service management API. This is application programming interface. Then next we have blob also. That is the Azure blob that we have. So this talks about the query state. Okay, they are going to post the result into the, this is act as a database here, and whatever the like queries we need to, we get the client. Okay, this we direct to the this particular database and we'll get the result. So we'll explain in detail how actually it works. This figure which illustrates the use of a software system called a big job. It explains the software system called, that is big job. Okay, so the decouple resource allocation from resource binding for the execution of loosely coupled workloads on the Azure platform. So this particular software, which eliminates the need for the application to manage individual virtual machine. So we start with the virtual machine that is from the client. So that individual virtual machine is managed by this application. The results of measurements shows a noticeable overhead for starting virtual machines. So here how we are going to start the virtual machine, and for launching the execution of an application task on a remote resource, increasing the computing power of the virtual machine, it decreases the completion time for long running tasks. So we have the number of tasks here in the working role instance. So for long running task, it will take much time. For short task, it will not take much time. So this is a brief about execution of loosely coupled workloads using the Azure platform. So next we'll have after this the concept, that is social computing and digital content. With respect to the social computing and digital content, the networks allowing the researchers to share data and provide a virtual environment supporting remote execution of workflows or domain specific. So using cloud, we can perform the remote execution as well. So only thing is that the network allows the researchers to share the data. So some of the specific example we have, my experiment for biology and nano hub for the nanoscience. So these are the like two kinds of specific domain example where the remote execution that is going to takes place. So next we have volunteer computing, a large population of users that donate resources such as a CPU cycle, a storage space for a specific project. The projects such as some of the projects I have listed here: Mercenary, Prime Search, SETI at Home, Holding at Home, Storage at Home, Planet Hub, Lab. Okay, so these are some of the specific projects where we can like use the cloud. So we can make use of digital content as well. So Berkeley Open Infrastructure for Network Computing, that is called as a BOINC, BOINC. It's a middleware for distributed infrastructure that is suitable for different applications. So what I'm trying to tell you from this is that the cloud computing that is used for social computing and which generate the digital content. So digital content is nowadays very much required. Whenever we require that data or content, we can easily transfer from one cloud to another cloud as well. So this is all about social computing and digital content. Hope you understood this. Thank you so much for patience listening. Please like the video, share the video, and subscribe the channel. Thank you so much.